Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Thursday. I'm Kevin, pastor for Crosswind Community Church, and I am glad you've taken this time to join me for this word from the Bible for today. Today, we're going to be looking at a passage from the book of 1 John. This is way near the end of the New Testament, 1 John chapter 5, and I'm going to be reading this morning verses 6 through 12. And I'll be reading this morning for you from the New Living Translation. And Jesus Christ was revealed as God's Son by his baptism in water and by shedding his blood on the cross, not by water only, but by water and blood. And the Spirit, who is truth, confirms it with his testimony. So we have these three witnesses, the Spirit, the water, and the blood. And all three agree. Since we believe human testimony, surely we can believe the greater testimony that comes from God. And God has testified about his Son. All who believe in the Son of God know in their hearts that this testimony is true. Those who don't believe this are actually calling God a liar, because they don't believe what God has testified about his Son. And this is what God has testified. He has given us eternal life, and this life is in his Son. And whoever has the Son has life. Whoever does not have God's Son does not have life. May God add a blessing to the reading of this word. Well, this morning, this passage speaks to us about how Jesus gives us life. And as I was thinking about that a few moments ago, I got to thinking about my morning coffee as I was making it. And I'm just curious. I'm hoping, I would love for you to leave a comment to this video below in the comment section and let me know whether you watch this in the morning or maybe you watch this in the evening. Doesn't matter when you're watching it, but what's your beverage of choice? You know, are you drinking a cup of coffee while you're in this daily word from the Bible, or are you a tea drinker? What might it be? Maybe it's orange juice. But this morning, I want to talk about coffee because, you know, there's a life to coffee. You know, it starts out with the planting, obviously, but then when the coffee cherries, they're not actually beans yet, they're cherries, are harvested. There's several different processes for your coffee cherries becoming what ends up in your coffee cup. And some of them are processed by chemicals, and some of them are just laid out to dry in the sun, and they're turned and they're cared for. And then after that initial drying of the cherries, there's a husking process, and then the beans are sorted and they're placed in bags and they're shipped to places like the United States. They're shipped to places like Rue's Roast, where my coffee comes from, my roaster. But then the next process takes place, because then the coffee beans are exposed to heat, something like 550 degrees or whatever, and they're roasted to release the flavors that are in it. And there's a process where the beans crack. And if I have this correct, if I'm correct in my understanding, the number of times the beans crack has to do with its flavor and whether it's a light roast or a dark roast. And I know you're all sitting there right now going, why did I listen to Pastor Kevin talk to me about roasting coffee? But it's really, coffee is about life, because these beans, really, it's in this whole process that the coffee comes to life for us. And when you think about where we're at right now, if you think about our world right now, every day we kind of experience death all around us. I mean, right now we are watching the news, or maybe we're not even watching it. It just comes to us, it seems like. And every day we're getting these updated coronavirus death statistics, but there's also, there's still accidents happening and world events happening and catastrophic events happening and murders happening, and there's this death all around us. But what I want you to understand is there's more than physical death all around us. If we really sat down and got to know the people that we're friends with, really got to understand their life story, what we would realize is many of the people that we know really well, they have a story about how a spiritual death has been part of their life at some point in time. We all have that story. But in the midst of all this death and darkness, we have a passage like today that tells us that Jesus brings life. And this passage reminds us of other passages in the Bible where there was once destruction and Jesus brings restoration, where there was once hurt and Jesus and pain and Jesus brings healing, and where there was once death, Jesus brings resurrection. Jesus can replace the ashes and the chaff and the crap of our life, if you will, with beauty. And so today, as you are drinking your coffee or your tea, whatever it may be, and you're thinking about these words, there's a lot more in these words today, but just remember this. In our dying world, Jesus brings life. And this is what God has testified. He has given us eternal life, and this life is in His Son. Well, friends, I hope that you'll come back. Remember, I do this Monday through Thursday, so I'll be back next week Monday. But if you want to continue with a daily word in the Bible, you can go to Crosswind's website, crosswindcc.org. You'll find a listing there for our weekly Bible readings, our Bible reading for each day of the week. But until then, I just pray God's blessing on your faith journey. And I pray that in this day, in the days ahead, that you will continue to see God's blessings and be God's blessings. I'll see you again on Monday. Have a great day. Ruse roast, the best roast.